Hello, my dear curious and studious students of surgery. Myself, Dr. Mahesh Chaudhary. I am warm welcoming you in my surgery lecture series. This surgery lecture series contains entire surgery with anesthesia, with radiology, with orthopedic. So stay tuned with us. Let's start our surgery lecture series. Welcome, my dear students, in my surgery lecture number 106, that is the lesion of the hand. In this lecture, we will explore the congenital deformities of the hand, that is the polydactylism, ectrodactylism, syndactylism, macrodactylism, Madelung's deformity, then acquired deformities of the hand, that is the dupuytren's contracture, tenosvaginitis, trigger finger, mallet finger, carpal tunnel syndrome, then swelling of the hand, implantation dermoid and ganglion. All these points are covered in this lecture. Now start with me the lesion of the hand. First we will see the congenital deformities. Congenital deformities includes the polydactylism, that is the supernumerary fingers, ectrodactylism, that is the absence of the digits, syndactylism, that is the webbing of the fingers, macrodactylism, that is the overgrowth of the fingers, congenital contracture of the finger, that is Madelung's deformity, that is the congenital subluxation of the lower end of the ulna. Dear students, here is the image of the polydactylism. This is the ectrodactylism, and this is the image of the syndactylism. This is the image of the macrodactylism, and this is the image of the congenital contracture of the little finger, and this is the image showing the typical Madelung's deformity. Dear students, we start with the Madelung's deformity. This is a congenital subluxation or dislocation of the inferior radioulnar joint. This deformity usually consists of relatively short radius, resultant radial deviation of the hand with prominence of the head of the ulna with sometimes contracture of the little finger. Club hand. In this condition, the radius becomes absent so that the wrist and hand are deviated laterally. Third congenital deformity of the hand is the congenital contracture of the little finger is commonly seen during early childhood. It is frequently bilateral. In many ways, it mimics dupuytren's contracture, but absence of the thickening of the palmar fascia is the pathognomonic features of this condition. Moreover, the ring finger is rarely involved. The pathology is contracture of the soft tissue. Dear students, this image clearly showing the ulna, the radial club hand. Note the absence of the radius is there. Now the second point of this lecture is the acquired deformity. First is the dupuytren's contracture. It is a localized thickening and shortening of the palmar fascia and rarely the plantar fasciitis. The fascia is thickened to form nodules and it contracts so that eventually the affected fingers are drawn into flexion. Now the etiology of this dupuytren's contracture is the cause of the dupuytren's contracture is not known definitely. It is known to be familiar. This curious disorder is of autosomal dominant inheritance. It is believed to be due to the repeated trauma to the palm which has been seriously questioned. That is often bilateral and may involve even the feet speaks against the traumatic origin. It occurs in association with epilepsy, alcoholic cirrhosis, pulmonary tuberculosis and also diabetes. This condition is occasionally associated with the Peyronie's disease of the penis. Dear students, here is a good picture of dupuytren's contracture of the right hand. You can see on this photo, and this is the typical case of the dupuytren's contracture of the left hand while the right hand is quite normal. Now the pathology of this dupuytren's contracture is usually the disease starts near the base of the little finger and later on it involves the base of the ring finger. Less often the middle and index fingers may be involved. A fibrous plaque develops at this region of the palmar fascia. Histologically, such plaque contains torn collagen fibers and altered blood pigments. As the palmar fascia gradually thickens and shrinks, its distal prolongations pull the fingers into the flexion. The distal prolongation of the palmar fascia are attached to the sides of the proximal and middle phalanx. From the palmar fascia, there are some superficial attachments to the skin of the palm, which also shrink to pucker the palmar skin. In long-standing cases, nodules can be palpated in the palmar fascia and gradually the permanent changes take place in the metacarpophalangeal and proximal interphalangeal joints so that the fingers cannot be made straight. Now the clinical features of the dependence contracture is first, age and sex. Dependence contracture usually begins in middle age. Progresses are so slowly that many patients do not present until old age. Men are affected 10 times more than women. Now the symptoms. In the early stage of the patient of this condition, the patient may complain of pain on grasping. Later on, the condition becomes painless and the deformity increases. The patient notices that they cannot fully extend the metacarpophalangeal joints of the ring and the little finger. Gradually, when the contraction of the palmar fascia becomes severe, the fingers are pulled down into the palm of the hand and becomes useless. Next is the patient may notice the thickening in the tissues in the palm near the base of the ring or the little fingers. Maybe years before contracture develops, the nodule gradually enlarges and spread strands of the contracting fascia which becomes prominent. And next symptom is the dependence contraction is commonly bilateral and may also occur in the foot. There is a family history also. This condition is family and often runs in families. Now the treatment of these dependence contractures are, in early cases, this condition may be treated by night splintage and gentle stretching. Established condition of dependence contracture requires operation. The following operations may be performed according to the severity of the cases. In this condition, the fasciotomy is necessary. In this procedure, a taut fascia is divided with a tenotome which is inserted horizontally. The skin is carefully separated from the fascia and contracted bands are divided. This procedure is repeated in other places of the fascia using separate points of entry till all the contracted bands are divided. This operation can only be performed in early cases. Of few surgeons claim good results. Now the fasciectomy. In this operation, an incision is made on the distal palmar crease. The palmar fascia is carefully dissected free. The contracted portion of the fascia is excised. If necessary, a Z-shaped incision is made over the proximal phalanx to excise the prolongation of the palmar fascia in the proximal and the middle phalanges. After any operation, a removable splint is used to maintain the corrected position. This splint is continuously used except during daily wax baths and exercises. After 6 weeks, this splint is only used at night for further 6 months. Next point, in the acquired deformities of the hand, that is the stenosing tenovaginitis, that is the de Quervain's disease. De Quervain first described this condition in 1895. In this condition, the fibrous sheath containing extensor pollicis brevis and abductor pollicis longus tendon becomes fibrous and thickened so that the interthecal lumen becomes narrowed. It occurs at a point about 1.5 inches or 3.25 centimeter above the tip of the radial styloid process. It is on the lateral aspect of the lower end of the radius where the tendon lie in shallow bony groove. Now the etiology and pathology of this de Quervain's disease is, it usually occurs in individuals who use their thumbs to a great deal. The cause is friction between the tendon sheath against the bone which leads to thickening and stenosing of the tendon sheath. Second pathology of the de Quervain's disease are a blow to the tendon sheath or tendon against the bone has also been incriminated to cause this pathology. This leads to edema of the tendon sheath and ultimately fibrosis. Degenerative changes of the fibrous sheath and tendon have also been incriminated to cause this condition. Dear students, here is a good picture showing how the de Quervain's disease is developed and the fibrosis of the tendon sheath. Now the clinical features of this de Quervain's disease are, the patient are usually middle-aged individuals between 40 to 50 years of age. This condition is more often seen in women. Main symptom is pain on the radial side of the wrist, particularly following action like ringing cloths. There is also weakness of the grip and weakness of the thumb. Pain becomes aggravated by abduction and extension of the thumb. In course of week, pain becomes so severe that the wrist is almost disables. On examination, a visible swelling may be seen just above the radial styloid process. The swelling is better felt than seen. Now the treatment. Conservative treatment in early stage by immobilizing the tendon with a plaster case including the forearm, hand and the thumb up to the distal crease. Often gives relief in 70% of the cases. Injection of the hydrocortisone and the xylocaine or novocaine to the thickened sheath is also effective. Operative treatment is imperative for cure in established cases of this condition of de Quervain's disease. Now the next point of this lecture is the trigger finger. This is a condition of stenosing tendinogenitis of flexor tendons. In this condition, there is an obstacle to voluntary flexion or extension of the finger. When the finger is extended, it is difficult to do so, but when the obstructed portion is crossed, the finger suddenly straightens with a snap, hence it is called trigger finger. Etiology and pathology of this condition is a small thickening is found on the flexor tendon where it passes beneath the pulley in front of the metacarpophalangeal joint. A portion of sheath in the region of the pulley may be thickened or constricted, pressing upon the tendon, causing an enlargement of the tendon on each side of the constriction. Rheumatoid tendinosynovitis is one of the causes of this condition. Dear students, here is the image showing the trigger finger clearly seen. Now the clinical features. This condition is seen more often in adults, though children are also affected. In adults, the middle finger or the ring finger is most commonly affected. The first complaint is that the affected finger refuses to be clenched when the other fingers are clenched easily. Similarly, when the fingers are made straight, the affected fingers remains bent as if the tendon is getting arrested at the particular point. If the finger is passively moved past this position, the finger jerks with an audible snap. In case of the straightening, such snap is almost like the trigger of a gun, hence it is called trigger finger. Now the treatment of this condition is, first is the conservative treatment. Injection of hydrocortisone into the tendon sheath may relieve the condition, but complete cure is only possible by operation. Then operative treatment. Through a short transverse skin incision on the palmar surface opposite the metacarpophalangeal joint, the affected fibrous sheath is exposed. The fibrous sheath is incised longitudinally so that the flexor tendon moves freely. Care must be taken to avoid the injury to the digital nerve. This operation can be performed at about the age of 1 year. Now, the next entity of this lecture is the mallet finger. This results from injury to the extensor tendon of the terminal phalanx. It usually occurs if the fingertip is forcibly bent during the active extension of the other joints of the finger and the extensor muscle is in the full command, that is the while making a bed or catching a ball. Now the pathology, how to develop this condition. Mallet finger occurs when the terminal slip of the extensor tendon to the distal phalanx is avulsed or it has pulled off a fragment of the bone. Its insertion from the dorsum aspect the base of the distal phalanx. Dear students, here is a good picture of the mallet finger on your screen. This is the another image of the mallet finger showing the terminal slip of the extensor tendon to the distal phalanx is avulsed. Now the clinical features of this condition of mallet finger are: the peculiar deformity is obvious, the terminal joint of the finger is kept flexed, the patient fails to extend the terminal phalanx. Passive extension is possible, but when it is released, the terminal phalanx falls back into the flexed position under the influence of the long flexor tendon. Now the treatment of this mallet finger is, if radiologically there is no fracture, the injury should be treated by a splint in which the terminal phalanx is held in full extension, that is the hyperextended, for 6 weeks. The splint used is either outlay splint or mallet finger splint, which leaves the proximal joints free to move. Now the next point of the acquired deformity of the hand is the carpal tunnel syndrome. This is a condition in which the median nerve is compressed at the wrist as it passes through the carpal tunnel. The space between the carpal bones posteriorly and the flexor retinaculum anteriorly. In the normal carpal tunnel, there is exactly room for the flexor tendons and the median nerve, so any swelling here is likely to result in compression of the nerve. Now the causes of this carpal tunnel syndrome, that is the compression, can be caused by the cellular abnormalities, swelling of other tissues within the tunnel or thickness of the retinaculum. The syndrome is however common in menopausal women, in rheumatoid arthritis, in pregnancy. This condition may occur in osteoarthritis and even with the myxedema. Malunited Colles fracture may occasionally cause this condition. In rheumatoid arthritis, there may be chronic inflammatory thickening of the tendon sheath with increase in the bulk. In some cases, cause remain unknown. These cases may be due to the stenosing tendinogenitis due to the infection of the flexor retinaculum. Dear students, here is a good picture showing the carpal tunnel syndrome. Clinical features. As mentioned, this condition is particularly common in middle-aged women at the menopause. It is about 8 times more common in women. If it occurs in younger patients, this may be rheumatoid disease, pregnancy, or tenosynovitis. Clinical features are pins and needles in the fingers, particularly the index and the middle fingers, and sometimes thumb is the common presenting symptom. It must be remembered that the little finger should be never be affected as it is supplied by the ulnar nerve. Second clinical feature is pain and paresthesia occurs in the distribution of the median nerve. Such pain is usually worse at night and it wakes the patient up at night with burning pain, tingling and numbness. The fingers may feel swollen. Hanging the arm over the side of the bed and getting up or walking about may relieve the pain. The pain radiates up along the forearm up to the arm. The finger may feel stiff, particularly in the morning, may be due to the compression of the flexor tendon. And third clinical features of this carpal tunnel syndrome are loss of the function. As the compression increases, the neurological symptoms appear with the paresthesia and numbness. Patient notices that she cannot do delicate movements and often drops small articles. Patient also feels incoordination of the fingers. There is actually no loss of the muscle power, but there is a loss of the fine incriminatory sensation. Ultimately, there may be some loss of the motor function of the muscles of the thinner eminence and of the first two lumbricals. Now, the signs of the carpal tunnel syndromes are examination of the hand is often negative. Slight tenderness over the carpal tunnel may be elicited if the fingers and wrist are held fully flexed for a few moments and increase in pain is noticed. By the above procedure, one can also assess the pattern of the sensory changes. The patient is often not sure of the precise distribution of paresthesia, light touch sensitivity and 2-point discrimination may be reduced in the skin innervated by the median nerve. In late cases, there may be wasting of the thinner muscles with altered sensation of the median nerve area. Movements. All movements of the joints of the hand, active and passive, are normal. Only abduction and opposition of the thumb may be weak. Now, the investigations made in these carpal tunnel syndromes are electromyography and conduction studies on the median nerve confirm the diagnosis. The lateral demonstrates delay at the carpal tunnel. Now, the treatment of this carpal tunnel syndrome is the first is the conservative treatment. This consists of the injecting the hydrocortisone into the flexor sheath at the carpal tunnel, and second is the wearing a cock up splint, etc. In majority of the cases, conservative treatment fails and surgery is the treatment of choice. The best treatment longitudinal division of the flexor retinaculum. This relieves the patient immediately. Neurological deficit may take time to recover or may not recover fully. In case of the rheumatoid tenosynovitis, additional synovectomy may be required. Now, the next point of this lecture is the swelling of the hand. That is, the first is the implantation dermoid. Implantation dermoid is caused by prick by different pointed objects such as a needle, bone of a fish, etc. The epithelium of the skin is driven in and causes such condition. A soft cystic swelling is found mostly in the finger and occasionally in the hand, which is neither attached to the skin nor to the deeper structures. Fluctuation can be elicited. Dear students, here is the image showing the implantation dermoid cyst of the hand. This cyst is developed due to the king of the pointed objects like needle, bone and fish. Now, the second point is the ganglion. Ganglion is localized tense cystic swelling in connection with the joint capsules or tendon sheath. It contains clear gelatinous fluid. Etiology of the ganglion is yet to be known. Myxoid degeneration of the fibrous tissues of the capsule, ligaments and retinaculi has been suggested. This is sometimes initiated or excited by injury. According to some ganglion arises from small bursa within the substances of the joint capsules or fibrous tendon sheath. This bursa becomes distended, possibly following trauma, giving rise to the ganglion. Synovial herniation as the probable cause of the ganglion has been rejected. Now, the pathology of this ganglion is the cystic swelling of obtaining clear gelatinous fluid or viscous fluid. It is surrounded by the fibrous capsules and it possesses small pseudopodia. Dear students, here is a good picture showing the ganglion on wholer aspect of the wrist. Now, the sites of the ganglion are the commonest sites is on the dorsum of the wrist. Other probable sites are front of the wrist when it may compress a nerve causing numbness or weakness. Third is the dorsum of the foot, the palmar aspect of the hand, the flexor aspects of the finger where small ganglia may develop. Now, the clinical features of this ganglion are: the patient often is a young adult. The most common presenting symptom is painless lump. Occasionally, there may be the considerable pain, which is often seen in case of the ganglion on the flexor aspects of the finger. On examination, the lump is well defined, cystic swelling, but it is often felt firm or even hard. As the cyst is very tense, mobility is not much, though it can be moved with great difficulty sideways. It is immovable along the axis of the tendon. When it arises from the fibrous sheath of the tendon, a swelling becomes fixed at the tendon is made taut. Now, the treatment of the ganglion is: first, conservative treatment. A strike on the cyst will cause rupture of the cyst. Will apparent belief of cure. Previously, it was done with the Holy Bible in the waist, but with this treatment, recurrence is common. Second is the aspiration of the cyst and injection of the sluicing solution, that is the 3% sodium mauryate or 5% phenol in almond oil or hydrocortisone is another well known treatment of this condition. This injection may be repeated followed by the crepe bandaging. This has also not succeeded to claim cure in majority of the cases. Operative treatment for this ganglion is: the complete excision of the ganglion is the best treatment. This is usually done by using a tourniquet. Dear students, here is the end of our surgery lecture number 106, that is the lesion of the hand. Thank you.